Welcome to another fun-filled weekend edition of Second City Sports Zoom Style.
Zoom style.
Along with Lakeena McGee, which is she, I am Sidney Brown, which is me. You can follow yours truly on the Twitter and the IG at SidKid80. Once again, that's SidKid80. That's SIDKID80, SIDKID80.
You can follow me at Keena McGee on the Twitter and at Keena_McGee on the IG.
You can follow this podcast, Second City Sports First, right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. Videos drop every Monday and Friday, right here on YouTube. Once again, videos drop every Monday and Friday. You can listen to the audio version of this podcast that drops every Tuesday and Saturday at War on Anchor. Once again, every Tuesday and every Saturday, the audio version goes up at War on Anchor. You can find us on all podcast platforms, including the iHeartRadio app. Type in those search engine boxes on your podcast platforms, WARR on Anchor. You can go to our website, weareregalradio.com for more details. And you can follow us on all social media platforms. There's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and right here on YouTube at War Media. Once again, at WARR Media. That's Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Thank you very much in advance for your support.
Like, share, subscribe, and tell your friends.
We are unapologetically fun, and we definitely have very definite opinions. Pardon my Alderman Fred C. Davidson. For those of you young folks that don't know who he is, Google him right here on YouTube. From the series Good Times television show back in the 70s. You know what I'm talking about. We'll leave it at that. Lakeena, there's one team in town as we kick off this episode with Chicago baseball. Let's go to the north side. There's one person that should have very definite opinions, and that's Cubs general manager Jed Hoyer. He made his media rounds over the last 24 to 48 hours. We'll give you our thoughts on that on our next episode coming up on Tuesday as we hit the baseball all-star break. But as of this recording, Lakeena, the Cubs are 43-45 losers, 11 out of their last 12 games. They face the St. Louis Cardinals this weekend at Wrigley Field to wrap up the first half of the season. If you're listening to us on our audio version, tonight's game will be the national game of the week on Fox. Weather permitting, I think that game the Cubs should play tonight.
Yeah,
so Sunday's game is in question. We'll see about that. That's an afternoon game. There's another scheduling change involving the Chicago Cubs. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But first, Lakeena, as I said in the last episode, we took the holiday off. So I said that around this time last week, the Cubs, if they're between 8 and 10 games out by the time we hit the All-Star break for our next episode, the Cubs are in trouble. Right now, I believe they're 8.5 games back. And they're playing the Cardinals. They're playing the Cardinals.
Right now, yep. As of right now,
8.5 games back. If they can shave off a game or two, maybe they'll save their season and save face. But General Manager Jed Hoyer, as I just mentioned a moment ago, he says he's listening to all offers right now. And he's gone from a buyer to now being a potential seller. As we told you guys, this could come. The losing streak, which was 11 in a row, 12 in a row, I believe it was. It couldn't have come at a worse time. But if you're Jed Hoyer, it couldn't have come at a better time because you have assets that you could trade off to help build your ball club for the future. As we said before, they need to rebuild their farm system. And if the Cubs continue to play like this, they're going to get a head start on that before July 31st trade deadline.
Yeah, I find it interesting. What a difference a month makes, right? I mean, they were up by I think like 2 or 3 games, and people were wondering, okay, who can you get? Get maybe get in Max Scherzer or get somebody like that. But unfortunately, they lost 11 in a row. They lost 11 their last 12, and I just think they're 8.5 up as of right now, and I kind of feel like okay, it's just like 9.5, I should say now, but. I just think that it's unfortunate that, maybe, I don't know, everything just started, the bullpen started, the wheels fell off, and then the hitting, they stopped hitting, and then the pitching, Jake Arrieta, I think, dare I say, may have to DFA him, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing, we didn't get the, we knew that Cubs fans knew that they were going to get the same Jake Arrieta we saw from those World Series, the NLCS, the Jake Arrieta, but he's definitely a shell of himself who he was during those years. And it's just unfortunate that this is sort of like how it ends, like this era of the Cubs. Now again, look, weird things have happened. Maybe they can shave off maybe 2 or 3 games with this weekend series, against the Cardinals. Maybe they could probably, wait and see after the All-Star break. Because I still think that division is still winnable. Like, I don't think the Brewers are world beaters. I don't think Cincy's going to be up there. So, but look, I think that business-wise, I think maybe Jed Hoyer feels that if, for the future, I guess maybe see who you can, listen to the offers, see who you can get. Now, could you get some top prospects for a Javi Baez? Can you get somebody, get a top prospect, a couple of your top prospects for Chris Bryant, who's a little banged up right now? I don't know. I mean, that's another thing that Jed Hoyer has to think about. But so we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm hoping it doesn't come to that. I mean, maybe in a couple of weeks, maybe something different will happen. But I just don't know at this point.
You're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition, along with Lakeena McGee. I am Cindy Brown, as we talk about the Chicago Cubs and their current troubles on the diamond, both on and off the field. Lakeena, a couple other names that we should mention that could be potential trade pieces. Andrew Chafin, who's having a heck of a year out of the bullpen, and closer Craig Kimbrell. I think Craig Kimbrell will be the first one to go. Should the Cubs continue this slide, he'll bring the most back. I know he'll pitch in the All-Star game next week representing the North Siders. But Andrew Chafin, he's a nice reliever to look at. I'm sure a whole lot of teams, including the Chicago White Sox, who we get to in a minute, should be calling about him right now. At least what we'll take to get him.
Yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting to see, if could Chafin, and Kimbrell, probably the two of your best that you'll probably get the most from them. So I'm thinking that's probably going to be, let's get to some of the top prospects. And I think that's going to be like the $1 million question. So I'm sure that, this isn't Jed's first rodeo doing stuff like this. So I'm not like worried about what he's going to do. I think he'll have his, calls. I've heard that maybe the Red Sox may want Kimbrell back. That's another. Like, they talk about that, right? I mean, then I heard the Blue Jays and some other teams, so and also the White Sox for Chafin. So it's going to be very interesting to see what these next couple weeks are going to be after the All-Star break, especially. It's going to be very interesting to see what he does, and if by some miracle the Cubs do somehow get themselves back in a couple of weeks after the All-Star break. I mean, but that's going to be like another thing. So who knows? I mean, we'll see what happens.
And also, too, you take a look at Chris Bryant and Javi Baez. If one or both of those guys should go, will you get value for either one, especially with Chris Bryant with the contract coming up? If your team X trying to trade for him, are you sure that he's going to resign with your team? You're walking on troubled water right there. I know if you're the Cubs, you're going to get as much back as you can, but are you going to get equal value back for either one of those guys? That's really the $1,000 question right now.
Well, I think that is right. I mean, are you gonna give your top prospect for a guy that it's gonna be a rental for the next 2-3 months? I mean, I think I think that's gonna be sort of the thing. Is he gonna be able to, Jed Hoyer? I mean, is he gonna be able to get like a top prospect for a guy that's gonna that might leave? They'll probably leave like in a couple of months, and probably not gonna be able to pay him that big contract. I'm sure he's gonna be. But his agent Scott Boras at the very least is going to be coveting. So that's a whole another issue. So we'll see. I mean, it's going to be very interesting.
And also another name to bring up is Jock Peterson. He only signed here for 1 year for, I believe, $7 million, and he could attract some contending teams as far as potential player to be acquired at the trade deadline. He's a left-handed hitter. I know the White Sox were interested in him a few years ago. I'm not going to say we can't use him. It'll be great, but the Sox really don't need him. I'm sure there's a few other contending teams that could use his services right now should the Cubs continue to slide.
Well, yeah, that's probably another guy, but I think he doesn't want to leave. He actually likes it here, so we'll see if he does get moved. But yeah, I'm wondering, like, okay, yeah, this will get to the point where by like we're going into mid-July. After the All-Star break, we'll see what happens if they're not able to, get back in the NL Central. So I don't know. I mean, we'll see. I mean, it's definitely going to be very interesting. Jed Hoyer is definitely in a pretty precarious spot, right? I mean, you don't want to see like, okay, hey, it's a free-for-all, it's a fire sale here, but then you don't want to say, you know what? that division is still kind of tricky. So I don't know. Like you're kind of like, Jed Hoyer is sort of stuck into like a rock and a hard place, I think.
Yeah, and each passing day, the clock is ticking to see what he does, and assuming that this slide continues and they can't get back on track, these moves that potential moves that Jed Hoyer is hired to make, this is going to set the tone for the Cubs organization for the next 5 years, and every move that he potentially makes. They had to become a hit because, as we said before, this farm system needs to be rebuilt, and you need to still feel a competitive team. Can you do both? I'm not sure. We'll soon find out. But you had a crossroads right here, and I heard some people say that that this current run it can be compared to the '85 Bears, that you should have won more than one World Series title. You could definitely make an argument about that, but especially in baseball, it's so hard just to win one title. That's in any sport, but definitely in baseball, it's a long grind, 162 games plus 3 rounds of playoffs, division, league championship series, World Series. Back in the day, Lakeena, we're old enough to remember it was just the championship series and the World Series. We thought that was long enough, but it is now it's not to be. But could the Cubs have won maybe another World Series? That was possible, but some of those guys got full of themselves. Of course, the management got sick of Joe Mann and his managing style, even though it helped them win the World Series in 2016. Of course, the offensive struggles, we talked about this before, Lakeena, has been an ongoing problem for the last 2 or 3 years. But if you're a Cubs fan at the same time looking on the flip side, this has been the greatest era of Cubs baseball. 2015, when Joe Mann was brought in here, you made it to the playoffs, got swept in the NLCS by the New York Mets, who lost to the Royals in the World Series in the next round. But 2016, you win it all. 2017, you get back to the NLCS before losing to the Dodgers. 2018, technically you were a playoff team, but your offense struggled through the last month of that season. You lost the division to the Brewers in the last day of the regular season. You lost the wild card game to the Colorado Rockies. 2019, you had that big collapse starting on Labor Day, and it continued after that. You missed the playoffs entirely. Last year, in a shortened 60-game season, you won the division, but got swept in 2 quick games in that wild card series against the Miami Marlins. So the ending is ugly, but if you're a Cubs fan, this is still – I'd rather take this than what has been happening over the past 100 years. Let's just take the fact since we've been alive, Lakeena, 1984, 89. 98, 2003,
and so
2007, 2008, before the tribute company sold to the Ricketts family. You see what I'm going here? That's to me years and gaps between playoff appearances.
Yeah, so I think you'll take this if you're a Cubs fan. You'll take this era, prior to the previous eras, because not a lot happened in those previous eras. So just to compare them, to compare this this core to the Bears. I mean, look, we can go into a whole tangent about it. We won't, but I mean, like you said, Sid, it's very you play 162 games. It's hard to do that. I mean, you got, like you said, Sid. Back in the day, there was only like 5-game series and such. So you didn't have to play, like, all you did was you had to play was a league championship series and the World Series. That's it. You didn't have to do a wild card or a divisional round or anything like that. So it's harder to do. It's hard to repeat in baseball. That's why it hasn't been. No one's done it since the Yankees. I mean, that's I think that's like people forget that. That's why it's so hard to win the World Series back to back. So it's just unfortunate that this is sort of like how it is. I mean, you'll take the beginning, you'll take the middle, but you hope that this is at least we can get a fight from this core. Like, okay, let's see if they have one more run in them. I think some guys got full of themselves. I think some guys just ran out of gas, both mentally and physically. So it's just unfortunate that it happened like at this time.
And before we move on, taking a look at the Cubs' schedule, of course, after this weekend's series against the Cardinals at the friendly confines, this the All-Star break. This time next week, they'll face the Arizona Diamondbacks on the road for 3. That should be a sweep. It should be a new attitude. We'll see about that. And then you go to St. Louis the following Monday for a big 4-game series on the road. And then Friday, July 23rd through the 25th, Arizona will come calling to the friendly confines. And then, of course, the following Monday, July 26th, you'll have Cincinnati here for 4 games. So the schedule looks easy on paper, Lakeena, but I think it comes down to this: how much fight does this team have left?
I think that's going to be the key. I think, like you said, to those Arizona games should be winnable. The fact that's a team that's not very good, and
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis you can put them out of their misery too. That 4 game in between those series, so they've got a chance to sort of at least gain some ground. So we'll see. I mean, look, I mean their schedule, the second half schedule is actually not too bad for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
So they can probably if they're still mentally like focused and they're still ready for that fight, we'll see what happens. But
Mm-hmm.
it's gonna be tough. We'll see.
Yeah, I think you mentioned this, Lakeena, but one more piece of news about the North Sides before we move on. Jake Arrieta is currently on the 10-day injured list with tightness, if there's such thing as tightness. So he's not been released yet. I know you mentioned that will they DFA him, designate for assignment. They still could do that, but at least Arrieta would be on the shelf until at least this time next week. So the Cubs could still do that. As we told you guys before the season started, you're not going to get 2016, 2017 Arrieta anymore. Whatever he has left, that's pretty much it. And we've seen that since the month of May, where it's been a downslide.
Absolutely. So we'll see. We'll see what they do with him. I mean, you're not going to be able to trade him, so you may have to just DFA him. I mean, you might have to just full out release him. You listen to Second City Sports Zoom style along with Cindy Brown. I am Lakeena McGee. Let's go to some happier news now. So let's go to the South Side for a second. Double good news, I guess. They gained a couple of games since we last reconvened. They are now 7.5 up on the Cleveland Indians. And also, too, they got some good news in the injury front. It looks like Eloy Jimenez might be on his way back. He's going to be starting his rehab assignment. He's been cleared to do baseball activities. So he's going to start his rehab assignment in a couple of weeks. He might be back as early as maybe late July, early August. So he put on there, I guess, a la Michael Jordan, but he tweeted out because it's 2021. He tweeted out, "I'm back." So Sid, what say you?
As we told you guys for the last couple of weeks on this show, if everything goes according to plan, Eloy Jimenez should be back before around the trade deadline, which is July 31st, which is still 3 weeks away. He may be back by the time the trade deadline is over. That's August 1st, August 3rd, somewhere around in there. Looking at that White Sox schedule, I was actually listening to a podcast earlier yesterday morning, and this person talked about when could Eloy return. Of course, during that weekend of July 29th, July 30th through August 1st, the Sox will play the Cleveland Indians here in Chicago. Of course, will GM Rick Hahn be in that box at Sox Park? We shall see. Of course, the trade deadline will be over by the time that game is played. I'm talking about going on the 31st at 6 p.m. against the Indians. Hopefully, I'll be there. But could Eloy Jimenez return during that series, or could they wait till after that series? Because that Monday, August 2nd, they have an off day. And of course, they started a 3-game series against Kansas City before traveling to Wrigley to play the Cubs that following weekend. Could Eloy Jimenez make his debut against the Cubs that following weekend? It's possible. But this person said that he could make his debut, talking about Eloy, make his debut that Tuesday, the 3rd, against the Kansas City Royals. Here's why. Because you could give him a couple of games at DH. You may throw him a game out there in left field, which I'm not suggesting that at all, nor should the White Sox. But you can get Eloy Jimenez comfortable in there to get some swings at the major league level, of course, because during that following weekend when they played the Cubs for 3 games at Wrigley, there's no DH because it's a National League ballpark. So assuming that Eloy does not play the field, which I don't see that happening, hopefully it doesn't, he'll be sitting on the bench. He'll be playing a pinch hitting role. So is good news for the Sox on the South Side as far as Eloy is concerned. Luis Roberts should be back by mid-August and not late August. And right now, if you're Rick Hahn, you're fielding calls about who you should go get. I know Brian Goodwin has been doing well so far, filling in the outfield. I know rookie Gavin Sheets has been a stud over this last week and a half or so, of course. We'll be ignoring the big elephant in the room, Adam Eaton, who was not getting the job done. He was DFA'd before Wednesday's. I'm not surprised either.
Not surprised at all.
He was DFA'd before Wednesday's game against the Minnesota Twins. So you have some options if you're Rick Hahn, and you'll have some good problems if you're Tony La Russa. Once Eloy gets back by the time at the end of this month, or perhaps August 1st or 3rd. And so you have some depth there. You have some good problems. As we said before, Lakeena, let's give General Manager Rick Hahn credit about having depth on this roster, because they had injuries up and down this roster all year long. And Yasmani Grandal, who was injured in Monday's game in the loss at Minnesota, he'll be out 4 to 6 weeks. He should be back by at least the middle of August. So he's going to be fine. Thank God he's not lost for the year. But Lakeena, here's the thing: if you're the White Sox with Eloy Jimenez, I know he was quoted as saying that he doesn't want to play DH, but he's going to do whatever it takes to help his team win. Hopefully he does that, because if I see him out there in left field one more time, unless someone gets hurt, it's going to be disastrous. Remember last year I talked about on the show. I love his attitude. I love his youthfulness. I know you always referred to him being caught up in the net a couple years ago. I believe it was against it happened a couple of times. I know once last year for sure. Mm-hmm. But he got caught up in the net up there left field a couple of times. I know he made all the blooper reels and all that. But there's times that's just not so funny. I know that Luis Robert made a couple of catches. He stood behind him last year and kind of laughed it off. But there's times to have fun, and then there's times to get serious. And I said this before, I'm not suggesting that Eloy Jimenez is a cancer or anything like that. Let me repeat again. I'm not saying he's not a cancer. He's not a problem child. That's not what I'm saying here. But there's a time and place for everything. And you can see, Lakeena, can the White Sox use Eloy Jimenez bat? Yes, they can. But hopefully Eloy has realized that this team, especially with the manager and Tony La Russa, this team can win without you. They have 51 wins as of this recording. Excuse me. The Sox have 51 wins without Eloy Jimenez. Okay. And if he does this again, there's going to be trouble. Someone's there to replace you. So hopefully there's some maturity that's been taking place during this time being injured.
Well, I've said this before. I mean, I want Eloy to DH. There's a reason why, we've been saying that he should DH. Look what happened. Look why he's been out for so long, why he hasn't even played a regular season game, because he crashed. I don't want to get to a point where I don't want to have to be an adventure with Eloy. Yes, it's funny, but, look what happened. So I know he said he's 200% healthy, and, you know how he is. But I just think that, look, if you have to DH him, DH him. I would prefer you do. I know he's not a fan of that, but for his own safety and for everyone's sanity, I think you do have to DH him. And look, I think that it's gotten to the point where, you got a lot of depth now. You can move guys around, and I just think that for the betterment of the team, especially if you're trying to compete, for the next 2 or 3 years, and for the health of your star, one of your stars, you're going to have to DH this guy. And look, if you want to put him out in the field from time to time, there's nothing wrong with that. But again, for everything I just mentioned, if you want to, preserve your future, you put him in the DH spots.
And also, too, Andrew Vaughn, as we talked about Lakeena during the season, of course, he was drafted to be the replacement of Jose Abreu eventually. If Andrew Vaughn is not traded by the deadline, that's probably what's going to end up happening anyway. But Andrew Vaughn's been doing a fine job, a slightly above average job in left field. That's all we asked for. Remember, he asked that from Eloy before he injured himself silly in spring training. Andrew Vaughn, as far as his performance on the field, it has been above average, and I commend him for it. With a rookie stepping in at moment's notice, at last minute notice, and he's done well in the outfield. Now, his bat still needs some work on, but he's been okay with the bat. But he's a rookie. He's still going to take him some time. I still like his future on the south side, assuming he's not traded on July 31st. The reason why I bring that up is because if you're Rick Hahn, we mentioned that reliever earlier from the Chicago Cubs. Of course, you have a rumor of Escobar from Arizona. Of course, Adam Frazier from the Pittsburgh Pirates, who we'll watch in the All-Star game coming up on next week on Tuesday. But Andrew Vaughn, who depends on who the players are, if Rick Hahn decides to go after him, he may be part of a deal. Now, as I've said on this show for the last few weeks, this team needs. I think that big bag will come, obviously, with Eloy Jimenez will return in the next few weeks here, assuming that everything goes on schedule down the minor leagues. But I think Eloy Jimenez may be that big bat that the Sox would have required if Eloy wasn't coming back this year. But, you could still add a backup second baseman. We know Nick Madrigal will return next year. But this number one thing that the White Sox need right now is a veteran bullpen help. And Rick Hahn, I think, realizes that. Will he get that veteran guy to help out in that bullpen? That remains to be seen. It wouldn't hurt to add another bat, but they still need bullpen help.
Yeah, you got enough bats though for the White Sox. I mean, you've got a lot of depth when it comes to batting. That's not the problem, but your middle relief especially, tends to still give up a run or two from time to time. So I would think I would rather he go after Rick Hahn, go after a middle relief, a bullpen guy to sort of eat up innings, in between. So I would think that maybe perhaps try to get that bullpen help. I mean, I don't know who's out there right now as of this moment, but I think once you get Eloy back, once Robert's back, I think you'll have the bats. Now look, it's always great you can never have too many bats, I guess, but also too you need. Pitching is really good. If you really want to try to win the World Series, pitching will, is the key than anything else. So I think,
and that's why I said their number one item on their list should be bullpen help.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be like who's out there though, but we'll see. But I'm sure there's some names out there. But yeah, I mean, look, I think the middle relief is really going to be what's going to separate this team if you want to get to that next level in the AL. If you want to compete with Tampa, if you want to compete with Houston. That's really what you need. You need that extra bullpen arm.
You're listening to Second City Sports Weekend Edition, along with Lakeena McGee. I'm Cindy Brown as we talk about the White Sox and the rest of Major League Baseball. Lakeena, the White Sox, they're up, I believe, 8.5 games as of this recording. They're playing the Baltimore Orioles on the road as we speak. That should be a sweep and by the time we commence here next week. But they lost 2 out of 3 to the Tigers last weekend, but they pick up a couple of games, winning 2 out of 3 at Minnesota against the Twins. Of course, the Cleveland Indians, as we transition over to the rest of Major League Baseball. Cleveland got swept in a doubleheader on Wednesday, including the 7-inning team combined no-hitter by the Tampa Bay Rays. Lakeena, including their no-hitter and Madison Bumgarner's no-hitter, 7-inning no-hitter at Atlanta early in the season. That's 9 no-hitters from Major League Baseball, correct?
Yeah, that's 9. That is number 9. So
all right.
We are counting that no-hitter, though, because, yes, I don't care what anybody says, it was part of a doubleheader. It was only 7 innings. No. That was a full game. We pitched, scoreless. Sorry, that's no-hitter. That's 9. And we're sticking to that. We are. Congrats to him, though, because he's had his struggles over the years. So to have that no-hitter, yes, we're counting that. But so he's actually had some. He's been up and down. But I think I was happy for him. And yes, we're counting that as no-hitters. So yes, we are.
Yeah. So with Cleveland's recent struggles and the White Sox picking up 2 games at Minnesota, they won the. Of course, losing 2 out of 3 to Detroit, they won the last 2 games in the Minnesota series. Lance Lynn pitched his heart out on Wednesday. The Sox were able to build up on this big lead against the Cleveland Indians. As we told you guys before the season started, Kansas City, I think they're where the White Sox were a couple years ago, but they don't have enough to compete right now. And I know they had a slight lead in the division going into the month of May, but that's when the Sox turned it on and Kansas City went down the tank. Detroit is Detroit. They stink. Cleveland, as we said, they'll be competitive with their manager, Terry Francona, but they don't have the funds to compete. And so they're trying to rebuild and be competitive on the fly. And so Cleveland's still hanging in there, but I think the Sox will win this division. Am I calling in a wrap? No, but you can kind of get that feeling right now if you're a White Sox fan. Now going on to the rest of baseball, Lakeena, I'll give you a couple of I'm not gonna say shocking moments, but here's one shocking moment. The Dodgers losing 2 out of 3 in Miami against the Marlins. Was it the weather? Was it a vacation? Were they looking forward to the break? Is it we got to bring up the big elephant in the room because it's big news. It's the Trevor Bauer situation. For those of you that don't know, he's been on administrative leave because of the alleged sexual assault that took place earlier this season off the field. And as of this recording, he's been given another 7-day suspension by Major League Baseball. He's on administrative leave, so we'll see what happens with that. But Lakeena, quickly on the Trevor Bauer situation, do you expect him to pitch again this year? It doesn't look that way. As of right now, I don't see him pitching again this year. We're not saying that he's guilty because he hasn't been charged or anything like that. But this does not look good right now if you're Mr. Bauer in the Dodgers organization.
Well, yeah, I mean, all his, I guess, like, you know, his gear, I think his jersey's been pulled from the MLB website, and, you know, some of his hats and stuff. They were supposed to have bobblehead day when they got back from their road trip, you know, because they were finishing, you know, the first half at home, and that's not, and, you know, that's not happening. So, yeah, I mean, look, I think it doesn't look good for him right now. All I'm gonna say is that, look, if he is, you know, if he's guilty, throw the book at him. If he's innocent, you know, he should be able to pitch again. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I don't like going into these legal things. So, like, I'm just gonna, you know, let's just move on, and, you know, and you know, whatever happens. We just gotta play it by ear, and we'll keep you guys updated.
Also, to another thing that took my eye around baseball this week, Oakland got the last game of their series against Houston. I thought they would be more competitive, but Houston continues to be that team right now. They still lead the AL West. I still am a believer in Oakland, but Oakland's got to get over this hump. They kind of did last year, taking advantage of Houston's struggles throughout that shortened season. But right now, they're not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, I think Houston.
I have them as the AL West division winner, for those you don't know. But right now they're in the middle of the struggle.
Yeah, I mean, it's still very early. They're going to be playing a lot in the second half of the season if you look at their schedule. So I think this division is not over with. I think Houston kind of like feels like they have a lot to prove. So I think that's why, you know, they kind of like, you know, they got a little extra pep in their step. I mean, you know, you thought that maybe those games would be a little more competitive. They weren't, unfortunately, but you know, they got, you know, Houston got the best of it. And look, I think that these two are probably going to be battling out. I don't think it's over with by any means. I think they're always still going to be pretty competitive.
Also, too, the Atlanta Braves took care of the Pittsburgh Pirates winning that series. As we talked about before, Lakeena, as of this recording, they're still a couple of games below 500. It's between them, the Washington Nationals, to chase down the New York Mets, who battled. They had their struggles against the Brewers earlier this week. Who wants to win the NL East? As we said before, the Mets, they're okay, but they're not great. If it wasn't for Jacob deGrom, they wouldn't be there. You know, I don't hate the Mets, but it's like, okay, they don't scare me. They don't.
Yeah, I mean, that division reminds me of the NL Central, honestly. I mean, it's a little more, you know, competitive, but yeah, I don't think it seems like nobody wants to win.
And that's an air quotes from me.
It's like a hot potato, right? Like nobody, like, okay, do you want to win? No, the Mets, no. The Phillies want to win? No. The Nationals, you know, they've caught up. You know, it's just, you know, Atlanta. You thought that maybe Atlanta would get together, but then they lose a couple, and they're like right back to where they started. But also, shout out to Jacob deGrom. You know, he recorded his 1,500 strikeout earlier this week, and you know he reached that milestone in just 198 games, passing Randy Johnson, who did it in 206 for the second fastest in MLB history. Only Yu Darvish has done it faster, so that's pretty cool. But he's not going to pitch. He's going to take the time off to spend time with his family and rest up, which is probably very smart by him. Look, as for the division, I think everybody on that, you know, except for the Marlins in the division still in contention. So it's gonna be interesting to see what kind of moves that these four teams make, because it's gonna probably, they're all gonna be playing each other too in the second half of the season. So it's all gonna come down to the wire.
Also, too, the St. Louis Cardinals, they took 2 out of 3 on the road against the San Francisco Giants. As we mentioned, they are battling the Cubs here this weekend at Wrigley Field as we speak. And so the Cardinals are trying to get back into it. On the flip side, for the San Francisco Giants, can they still win a division? Yes, I'm not convinced, but they'll definitely be around the wild card race. It's going to be interesting to see, as I said in our last episode, what management does to help boost that squad around the trade deadline.
Yeah, that should be interesting too. And also, too, Boston lost 2 out of 3 to the Angels
Mhm.
early this week. And look, I think that they're 2.5 up as of right now on the Rays, and we'll see what they do during the trade deadline because it looks like it's probably gonna be between the Rays and the Red Sox for the AL East. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody thought that that would be the case earlier this year. So the Yankees, they might be still one of the sellers in the off, in the trade deadline. And Toronto, I mean, hopefully they'll be able to come back. They haven't decided yet as of right now if they're going to be able to come back to Toronto and play their home games there. So I think that's still playing a part of their struggles. But they may have a say on who wins that division too. So we'll see.
Real quick, Lakeena, before we move on, going back to the Yankees. So, and there's been some small talk of, do you even entertain the fact of trading Aaron Judge? Would you do that?
Well, not if you want anarchy in the Bronx. Like if you want, everything to go like haywire. Like I would advise not. I mean, you could probably get a top prospect. I mean, but I'm sure the Dodgers would love to have him, and I'm sure they're not going to trade him within their division or even within the AL. So hey, maybe the Dodgers might want him, maybe the Giants, maybe the one of the teams in the AL East, other than the Marlins. I'm sure you'll probably get a top. I'm sure they're going to want a top prospect back. So, but I'm sure it's probably going to be. I don't think. There might, I don't want to say riots because I don't want to use that term, but it might be some interesting. It'll get interesting in the Bronx, no doubts.
Yeah, I just can't see that happening. But then again, you never know. You never know. Also, closer, Aroldis Chapman has had his struggles. I know he pitched the other day in Seattle in a blowout victory. It looks like they're trying to get his confidence back. Will he be on the trading block? Maybe, but given his recent struggles, no. But you still have a couple of weeks before the trade deadline, so we'll see what happens there. Going over to the National League, as you mentioned, Lakeena, the Dodgers. I'm not still convinced they're going to win that division. Of course, we mentioned the Trevor Bauer distractions. San Diego, they had that battle with the Nationals earlier this week. I still believe in them. Of course, the Central is the NL Central, the NL East. We talked about this. So I'm not going to waste my time with that.
Probably smart. So it'll be interesting with the Giants. Can the Giants keep up? I mean, that's going to be the thing. Like we thought that maybe the Giants would probably fade. They haven't yet, but they've had a lot of injuries. So could that be the case by the time the All-Star break commences? But the Dodgers, I mean, there might be a whole lot of things. They're having some injury issues too still. So I don't know, like maybe it could be a whole combination of things, the injuries, the Trevor Bauer, legal issues and such. So who knows? And San Diego, just kick it out their own way. I mean, they think that maybe they're trying to get back, but then they have that, then they have that series with the Nationals. So it's just you just don't know. I think that NL West is going to be very that NL West, I think the AL East is going to be very interesting divisions going into, and the NL East too, also too, going into the All-Star break.
Last note on baseball before we move on. Here's the series that's going on this weekend. Besides our Chicago teams, of course, the Cardinals and Cubs, White Sox, Orioles, Atlanta and Miami to take on the Marlins. Atlanta has had their struggles against Miami this year. Kansas City will go to Cleveland to take on the Indians. The Phillies and the Red Sox from Fenway Park. The Pirates will take on the New York Mets. The Blue Jays, as you mentioned, Lakeena, will take on Tampa Bay. That should be an interesting series. Oakland and Texas are battling in Globe Life Field. Cincinnati at Milwaukee. The Tigers at the Minnesota Twins. The Yankees at the Astros. That'll be the headlight game for you, those of you across the country tonight on Fox. Those of you listening on our audio version. Of course, the Washington Nationals will play the San Francisco Giants, I should say. Anaheim's at Seattle. Arizona's at the Dodgers. And, of course, Colorado and the Padres. Those are the series that will take place right before the All-Star break.
Should be a lot of fun, especially the Toronto Tampa one. They've had their battles, too, earlier this year. So should be very interesting.
You're listening to Second City Sports along with Lakeena McGee. I am Sydney Brown. As we have a couple minutes left in this segment, Lakeena, you want to mention some words about the late Terry Donahue. I did read something about this earlier this week, and I was obviously shocked by the news. Why don't you tell our audience about it?
Yeah, he's the winningest coach in Pac-8/Pac-10/Pac-12 now. I just want to make sure keep that straight.
Telling our ages.
Yeah, I know, right? It's crazy. He had a 2-year battle with cancer. He passed away late last weekend on Sunday. Surrounded by his family. He was only 77. And I think one of the great things about him was that he bled, powder blue and gold, right? The UCLA Bruins. I mean, he went there he went there, he went to the Rose Bowl. It was actually the UCLA's first trip to the Rose Bowl back in 1965. And, they upset Michigan, and Michigan State, I should say, remember with Bubba Smith and them, they were number one, Michigan State was. And, he went on to be the assistant coach for Pepper Rogers and Dick Vermeil, and then Vermeil left to go to the NFL. Donahue took over. He was only 31 when he took over. People forget about that. He was only 31, in this 1976. He became the first, guy to take, go to Rose Bowl as a player and assistant coach and a head coach at UCLA, his alma mater, which is just, amazing. He had 151-74-8 record with the school. He had, won 5 conference titles in 82, 83, 85, 87, 93. He finished at the top. He went to the Rose. He won 3 Rose Bowls in 83 and 84 and 86. During his tenure. And also won the 85. Actually went to 7 consecutive. Had 7 consecutive wins in bowl games. With the Rose and the Fiesta in 85 and also 86. The defunct Freedom Bowl that's not existent anymore. The 87 the Aloha Bowl and the Cotton Bowl too in 89. So, and he coached guys like Troy Aikman, Kenny Easley, John Ogden, 3 of them Hall of Famers. And, he saved the program. He went to San Francisco for a little bit, to finish up his career with the 49ers, working with their front office. He did some TV for a few years, and, he helped kind of shape UCLA to kind of be like that top tier team, like in the 70s and 80s into the early 90s. He and USC had their battles, also UCLA and Washington and such. This was before the Oregon schools, came into play. And, just that I know a lot of UCLA fans would love to go back to those days when he was there. And he had like this natural charisma about him, when he, very, very good looking, very like a California guy, and just a great coach and a great guy. And I heard some comments, from some of his former players. I think I heard some comments from Randy Cross, who he helped coach.
Friend of the show.
Yeah, we got to get him back on to share some stories, because he shared some good stories about how he actually ended up recruiting him. So we got to get him back to do that. So it's just another great loss. We've lost some great college coaches for football and basketball in the last few years, and he was another one. And just thought I would say that, just kind of like a thoughts and prayers to his wife and his daughters and the grandkids. It's just just very tough. And 77 just so young too. So, but our thoughts and prayers to him, and just a really another great loss in college sports, and for the UCLA community especially.
Yeah, so as we mentioned before, peace and love to his the Terry Donahue family from all of us here at Second City Sports and War Media. Lakeena, one last thing before we close this segment out. Congratulations to the back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning. They defeated the Montreal Canadiens at home in Game 5 the other night, 1-0 to take their series in 5 games. Of course, it was a closing chapter for the NHL on NBC. For those of you that do not get NBCS, and don't worry, the channel fortune will go away at the end of the year. But you can go to their Twitter pages and their Facebook pages. Doc Gamer gave a great 13.5-minute tribute following the game. Of course, Eddie Olczyk and Kenny Albert, they'll be the number 1 team on TNT starting next season in the fall. They gave their tributes following the game as well. So I almost had a couple of tears in my eyes. We talked about it last week with our girl Rachel Kopchak, co-host of the House of Hockey podcast. It was a great 16 years for NBC, but I'm really looking forward to how ESPN and Turner Sports cover the NHL starting in the fall. First of all, like I said, mentioned, congratulations to Tampa Bay Lightning. They're the first team since the 2016-2017 Penguins to win back-to-back Stanley Cups in this salary cap era. So
Yeah, also
congratulations to them. Head coach John Cooper, Andre Valesky was the series MVP, Steven Stamkos, and
deservedly so. I think
so
he
congratulations to
was,
the
yeah.
entire organization.
Yeah, just an amazing feat. I mean, I guess Tampa Bay, they call them Title Town, I guess, because they've done very well. I mean, they were the
Yeah.
fortunate with the Bucks winning the Super Bowl, this past Super Bowl, and
Mm-hmm.
also to the Rays getting to the World Series. But yeah, I mean, I think, look, this is just as far as the NBC is concerned. I mean, it's gonna be interesting what they do, because they're gonna have a lot of holes in their programming with with the NHL no longer being there, and of course, like you said, Sid, unfortunately, with NBCSN now going away, I just think that it's gonna be interesting what they do here. And I mean, I hope, can we get Patrick Sharp into somebody's television? Can one of these networks slide
He
about
may
that?
do some work for Watcher Sports Now or Hockey Night in Canada. That's still a possibility if he's not brought back here locally.
Which he should. I mean, that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother thing. There was a guy who won 3 in a row. He's won 3 in a row. I forgot his name. Shoot, for the Lightning, I forgot his name. But he's won 3 in a row now. But yeah, I think that it's gonna be interesting what Turner and ESPN. They seem like they're very invested in this, and I want to see how they do this, because I want to make sure they bring back the original theme for ESPN NHL. So.
We talked about that last week with Rachel. Yeah.
Yeah, please.
Even if it's just for 1 year, bring it back.
Yeah, it's just for a year as you're composing another music. So I really want that. And look, it's gonna be interesting to see what they do, because I think, look, we saw ESPN, of course, announced their roster. I'm sure Turner's still finalizing their NHL roster. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting to see what both these networks do with their hockey coverage. And can the hockey coverage kind of like get to the NHL back to that level that we thought they would be, but they haven't yet?
All right, we'll leave it right there. We have to take this 20-second timeout. Stay tuned for more sports and more fun as the weekend edition of Second City Sports continues with Big Dave Watson and from SB Nation, Mr. Ricky O'Donnell, as we review the first 2 games of the NBA Finals between the Milwaukee Bucks and the Phoenix Suns. And we'll preview Game 3, and we'll talk about Olympic basketball and the future of the Chicago Bulls. Along with Lakeena McGee, I am Sidney Brown. We'll see and hear you on the flip side.